Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Cinema Savvy. It is myself, George, joined once more by Tayte and Phill for the first spoiler discussion for Star Wars Skeleton Crew, the latest Star Wars series, which is now streaming on Disney+. The first 2 episodes were released today. We have all watched them. We're going to be talking about them. We're going to be giving our thoughts, maybe theorizing a little bit more. And we're going to, I guess, have an open conversation about it. I say the first Star Wars show since June. I believe it's the first time we've been in sequel trilogy, not High Republic. It felt like it's been a while. It's very different. We're going to talk about it. There's lots to talk about. Before I start talking about things too much, how are we all doing today?
Doing okay. Doing absolutely fine. It's always nice to get new Star Wars content, especially when this is kind of... We'll talk about it when we get into the episodes, but this feels very fresh and new and not really connected to anything else Star Warsy at all, it's nice to see from a Star Wars show. I love connecting the universe together and trying to keep up pace with that, but this feels very fresh from the very off, so I'm very happy to start discussing it.
Yeah, agreed. It's nice to have fresh stories. Same thing, the Acolyte, different eras, but different perspective. It's not set during the era we all know and love, but it's nice to see more that you can add on, and build it wider. So, yeah, looking forward to talking about it.
Yeah, and for people watching at home, this is a spoiler discussion, so please do comment with your thoughts on Skeleton Crew, what you thought of today's episodes. If you're not watching it live, you're watching it later on, drop us a comment. We'll reply to them. I'm curious to see how this does with people, particularly this one. I'll get into my thoughts before watching it. I'm very intrigued to see how this goes down, if I'm brutally honest. But yeah, do let us know. If you're not vibing with it, let us know that too. We're very open to stuff such as that as well. Maybe one of the three of us hasn't vibed with it too well. We'll be talking about that. We won't be shooting people for that. And as always, if you want to find out what other videos, we've had a very busy few days because I've just been uploading non-stop. If you go on our social medias, you can find out what we're working on. We announce videos, we talk about what we're doing. Linktree.com/CinemaSavvy will pop you through to our Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd, and Blue Sky. We're working on all of them at the moment. We're still getting used to them. We're now doing shorts. So it is one of them where we are growing a bit on there if you want to find out a little bit more. And of course, the main platform we're always on is YouTube. Hit the subscribe button and notifications if you want to know what videos are happening alongside the community tab. So that's a bit of polite prelude. I guess we're going to really kickstart this. You sort of immediately drew to the fact it's in a bit of a different time, a bit of an entry point. And if I give my thoughts heading into the show, this is almost divided in two. Now, John Watts was attached many years ago. At one point, I believe it was called a High Republic TV series. And then when Filoni was brought on board as like an executive producer, John Watts came on to showrun it. He just done No Way Home, I think, at that point, or maybe even No Way Home hadn't come out yet. I'm not entirely sure, but he was going to be the showrunner for this one. He was going to direct the episodes. And then some big names started getting thrown on board. David Lowery was announced. The Daniels, fresh after winning an Oscar, were announced to be doing this. We had Bryce Dallas Howard as well. And Lee Isaac Chung, who I think who directed Minari, who worked on one of the Acolyte episodes. It really caught me off guard because from day one, they marketed the show and said the show, everyone's going to talk about Goonies. Some people might say Stranger Things. I'm trying to think what other sort of coming of age group kids ones there are.
Stand By Me.
Yeah. Chris Columbus, that sort of vibe. And I knew from Celebration last year when we were all in the main stage and they put the trailer on, it was very much the kids were in attendance as well. This is going to be an Amblin-inspired film series. I keep saying film series. And when you got Kathleen Kennedy saying that, who was pretty important for Amblin, that resonates a bit more than any other producer saying it's going to be like an Amblin in Star Wars. And I've always been cautiously surrounding it because I'm not a child. I don't have kids. I don't have like nieces or nephews. So I know I'm in the dark on, I'm not going to get the opinion of, I'm not the main demographic and I won't be watching this with the main demographic, but I hope that I enjoy it. And that's been my approach for this show for the last year and a half, which I think is sensible. And a lot of other people in the community have said similar things. And I've been more intrigued. Dave, obviously a good friend of the channel, he's got a young one. Another friend of mine that tends to watch and comment on these, he's got his little ones he's getting into Star Wars. So I'm really excited to see how this goes down with the young audience, because only until I saw this on Sunday, watching it for the first time, I didn't really watch the trailers. I was happy just to go into it. We didn't do any trailer discussions. I just wanted to watch the show. Obviously, we had the Acolyte earlier this year. There's only 2 shows this year for Star Wars. Obviously, we're all hyping up Andor in April, rightfully so, because we all can't wait for the return of director Orson Krennic. But this will do until then. And I want to say it blew me away on Sunday. I did the review yesterday, the spoiler-free first episode. And it was really weird. I was like smiling doing a review. Like I was talking about the show, which was very, very, I'm trying to think of the right word. When I was doing the show, when I was watching it, it was a very different type of review that I've done in the past. And I think that's what caught me off guard, is I was able to talk about this in a different way to what I have done in the past. I don't normally get excited when I'm talking about stuff, but I just had such a great time watching this, and I've felt not like I haven't had this in a while with Star Wars, but I felt like if I was a child, this would be the perfect entry point. To the point I actually compared it to Phantom Menace. That if you're showing it not because I was born then and that was my entry point, this feels like the most child-accessible Star Wars entity since then. Is that fair for me to say?
I guess so. It's definitely aimed at a younger audience straight from the off, and you can see that. And I know that Star Wars have done various different things in the past which have been aimed at a younger audience, such as Rebels, with kind of what they went in that direction. You could even look at maybe some of the Clone Wars, and definitely look at Star Wars Resistance, which I never ended up watching, but that was definitely not aimed at kind of an older Star Wars demographic. It was aimed at a younger Star Wars demographic. So they've definitely dipped the toe in there before. And you have to remember, the original Star Wars wasn't really made to be, it was made for general audiences. Like, it's an adventure in space. It was made for everyone in mind, not specifically like targeted at an older audience, like you'd say Andor. Do not show Andor to kids. That show's brutal. Like, it's definitely got its own kind of place and stuff like that. But I personally say there was like 3 demographics you could go for here, because you're not only trying to draw in younger audiences and get them introduced into Star Wars and give them a nice entry point, showing them kind of force using, which they do in episode 2. This is a spoiler discussion, so I can say that straight away. But also showing off various different things within the universe, like, you know, speeder bikes and all other things that you could go, oh, that's a Star Wars, and bring them in that way. You've also got Star Wars fans in general who will watch anything that they put out because it's Star Wars. Me being one of those people who casually sits in the background and watches all of this stuff, even if I don't have a large kind of vast amount of knowledge about everything Star Wars, I'll go and watch anything that any Star Wars show they put out without really even thinking about it twice. But I feel like, as a third point, I know people have been comparing it to Strange Things, people have been comparing it to Goonies and all of these different things. You do have that next audience of kids who grew up kind of with that era, people who, you know, grew up with films like, you know, Goonies and Stand By Me and all of those different things. They're going to get a nice little kind of drop of nostalgia thrown in there by seeing something like this and having the same kind of respect for things as it is kind of an Amblinified Star Wars show. So I think it's more than just kind of this show's aimed at kids, because I'll go ahead and say I enjoyed the first 2 episodes. I wasn't expecting a ridiculous amount from it. The trailer didn't excite me in any way. I was like, hey, the trailer just looks like, you know, Star Wars, but, you know, like an 80s kind of coming of age movie styled thing. So it's Star Wars content. I'll always be happy to watch it, but the trailer did nothing for me. And the first 2 episodes were like, that's a solid start. Nothing like spectacular, nothing that's blowing me out of my seat. But I can definitely get on board with the adventure. I can definitely get on board with the characters they've introduced. And I'm starting to kind of see where they're going with the storyline and see what they're trying to do with the show in itself.
Yeah, and I agree with a lot of that, especially with the, you talk about obviously that audience, that, you know, Goonies, Stand By Me, that kind of 80s vibe. For us, obviously growing up, Phantom Menace again was that lovely early entry point, alongside obviously watching the original trilogy, but to then bring you into the Star Wars world. If you want to bring a younger audience into it, this is a lovely middle ground. Like, you have the High Republic Young Jedi Adventures, which is for your, you know, 4, 5, 6-year-olds, that kind of era. This is a little bit above that, but it also sits quite nicely between some of the some of that early Rebel series, some of the early Clone Wars series before obviously it gets dark, but it gives another nice medium point. But what it does, it gives you that nice medium point in live action, which is something that Star Wars, when you look at it as a whole, was kind of missing. You have these entry points, you have Resistance for the younger audience who, their first Star Wars film in the cinema might well have been Episode 7. Considering now it's 2015, so it's nearly 10 years ago, but those kids growing up will then have that as their entry point as in their first cinema experience. So Resistance gave you that on screen, but in a animated universe, this gives you that in a live action universe. And I have to say, going into it, I didn't have a huge amount of thoughts. Obviously, I was very hyped for the Acolyte being such a huge fan of the High Republic, but we saw the trailer, as you said, George, at Celebration last year. And then for me, it kind of fell under the radar a little bit. There hasn't been a huge amount of build-up. There hasn't been a huge amount of hype, either from Disney. I think we might have seen a little bit of backlash from the Acolyte affecting that a little bit, trying to stem some of the negative early review bombing shenanigans that happened with that show. Anyone's thoughts on that is always more than welcome in terms of if they like it, they don't, that's absolutely fine. But I think they then kind of went, okay, we need to step back just a little bit and kind of protect what's coming up, I think. So there wasn't a huge amount of marketing. There wasn't a huge amount of trailers. There wasn't a huge build-up, which is fine. I don't mind this, but it kind of then, it felt a little bit on the back burner. So when it came out today, I was like, oh, yeah, this is a thing. It's here. It's finally here to watch. Obviously, I'll give you my thoughts going through the episodes, but I think, as I said, it's a lovely entry point, but it's a new entry point for that live action to kind of counterbalance some of the animation entry points. So it's a good all-rounder, I think.
Yeah, very well said about the marketing, because I thought it was fascinating. I don't know if you guys remember, there was a Lego set that leaked. When I say leaked, sorry, the official Skeleton Crew Lego set was on sale in August, 4 months ago. Crazy. August was 4 months ago. And there's nothing against the show, but as I've watched the first episodes, the family-orientated vibe, as you said, Tate, rightfully so, it's multiple demographics, but I can't help but think this is, and maybe I'm being deluded and I'm in an echo chamber of sorts, but I feel this is going to be massive for the next 6 weeks. Now, I can't sit here and say I've seen a ton of marketing. Now, I can't sit here and say I watch kids' TV. You know, when we were younger, right, all the adverts would have been like toys adverts, this, that, the other. If this is where I'm sort of going, maybe because I watched The Penguin recently, and Penguin didn't particularly have a strong marketing, but week by week, and this isn't HBO, we don't get the numbers, it's not television broadcast, it's Disney Plus, but that was one of them rare occasions where every week the audience went higher and higher and higher and higher, and very few shows have ever done that. And I'm wondering with something like Skeleton Crew, where when all the families sit down in December, let's say 23rd, random day, they've got a week off. Oh, there's this like family Star Wars show. There's been 4 or 5 episodes already. Maybe let's give it a watch. People are talking about it. It hasn't had the hype as we've said. And I feel like Disney have took a different approach to marketing this. And I'll be honest, I think this has been better for it. Sometimes less is more. I don't want to compare it to Wicked, but Wicked felt like a sort of bomb that came out of nowhere, that no one spoke about Wicked. Then like a month before the film came out, every collaboration in the world suddenly started collaborating and it became this phenomenon. And I'm really hoping, again, knowing I'm not the demographic, when I was in London the other day, tons of posters, bus stops, everything, as you get for Disney stuff. But I do wonder, with the attention being on Andor, with the attention having been on the Acolyte, as you said, Phil, when it was not D23, when it was Celebration last year, Skeleton Crew was like you're not a film, you're not The Mandalorian, you're not Andor, you're not the Acolyte, you're this one. Not disrespectfully, but that's when it was that mega panel of day one of this is everything we're doing right now. It did fall to the bottom of that. And I'm definitely in humble pie of sorts already, one day in, because, as I said, I very much enjoyed the first 2 episodes, but I've really been blown away by it. And I actually think, again, I'm not saying too much from the marketing, but it's gone so focused on that it's the Goonies, it's Amblin, it's this. It's been able to allow the show to naturally come alive. I mean, we'll talk about them later, but SM33, aka Smee, Captain Hook, Pirates, all these little things. If that was something, let's say, the Acolyte, that would have been like mined like a month before it came out. This is what this means, that's what that means. But I don't feel like Skeleton Crew's had that. And going off what we've been saying, I know it's kind of why I haven't even spoke about it properly, but we sort of are. Even this being an entry point for the youngsters, I saw a John Watts interview saying that you don't have to have seen all the films to watch this. You don't have to have seen all the TV shows to watch this. And I know they say that for a lot of things. And particularly, they said that about The Acolyte, and I agree to an extent. But not every show, with a lot of the post-episode 6 things, we've had to have not watched Star Wars, but this as an entry point actually felt the most like you can go in knowing nothing. And if I'm really honest, it's not even going to tell you what year it is. Maybe it will in future episodes, but I know it's set after 6. I know there's another mystery. I know there's theories, but it felt really stripped back that is going to make it easier for people to get accustomed to. One issue I have with The Acolyte, and it's not The Acolyte's fault, it's the High Republic, is this is a period of peace, and the Jedi were at their peak. So we've always known, they sort of can't really be Sith. I know, Phil, you'll correct me, rightfully there are villains and whatnot, but as you said, the live action, right? What the audiences have come to know and love of Star Wars, the duels, the action to this, we knew that got like, oh my god, there's a Sith, he's going to kill them all. He did. But with a show like this, it's like, I don't really know what's happening because we don't really get pirates. Okay, we've got a Force user in Jude Law, and we love Jude Law. But it's, I don't know, it's really exciting. I'll add to that. Going online this morning, a lot of my American friends are loving it. And a lot of people, there hasn't been big glossy events for this to be promoted. I know the premiere was last night in Disneyland. It wasn't some big extravagant red carpet in LA with 1,000 people turn up. It was just a premiere at Disneyland that the cast turned up to. Even the screening on Sunday, it wasn't at one of the big IMAXs. It was at BFI South Bank. It was about 2/3 full. I don't know why they handled it that bad, but this hasn't been the hype, let's all go. But I feel like this could benefit from that. And if this has the power of word of mouth, which I really hope, and again, knowing it's for families, not necessarily for others, I feel this could be very strong because I just kind of want to bring a film thing in at the moment. Moana 2 has had, I've not seen it. It's had bad reviews. No one was talking about it till 2 weeks ago. It's just opened to the second biggest film of the year. It's already hit $400 million because it's a family film. And the people online, I'm not saying they don't have families, a lot of them do, but it's not how the real world works anymore for some. In fact, post-COVID, the most successful films tend to have been animated family films. And I'm wondering, is something else going to crop up with this show that actually this show could end up being more popular than some of the other ones? I'm not sitting here saying give me season 2 after 2 episodes, but I'm saying that I think in the same way that when Andor came out, there wasn't a whole too much of hype attached to it, and it didn't have the rep it does now before it came out. Mandalorian, no one but Star Wars fans seemed to know about the Mandalorian until Baby Yoda appeared, and that was all the conversation. It was all about Baby Yoda for a few weeks. I am wondering if this show, going really in before we've even got into it, might actually have benefited from everything being quieter, from it not being spoke about. And I think saying this on day 1 of 7 weeks worth of Star Wars videos, one of my big intrigues is how the show is going to do for the next 7 weeks.
There is a massive glaring benefit to the fact that this hasn't been as heavily advertised and heavily put under the microscope as, say, for example, some of the other Star Wars properties. We'll compare it to The Acolyte because The Acolyte was this year as well, where everything was so almost micromanaged, but also so heavily criticized down to the absolute T.
Oh, Kiadimundi's in it. In the old canon, he wasn't born. I'm like, piss off. But that's a live streamer watching every episode looking for that. But then oh my god, there's fire in space. What?
Yeah, the point I'm trying to make here is that Star Wars hasn't always had the best track record of looking after their actors, especially their younger actors. With a show that's centered around 4 key younger actors being the main characters of the show, this show had to go about it differently. It had to. It couldn't have the big red carpet. It couldn't have, the heavy advertising, showing the kids' faces, putting them on posters, putting them on billboards. I think that takes away a lot of the pressure. I think that takes away a lot of the the parts of the fan base who will absolutely go in and microscopically just take apart the show. this show has very little in its first 2 episodes that has things to do with just anything in the Star Wars universe. You can tell from the way that some of the things are shot, from some of the things that are in the episodes. For example, the blasters used, they're Star Wars blasters. The settings and sceneries, to some extent, you could say, look a bit Star Warsy. You've got the speed bikes, they're kind of Star Wars styled things. Apart from that, the one bit of Force being used at the end of episode 2, there is barely any link to Star Wars at all. Maybe a couple of, alien creatures who may have kind of appeared in other shows and things. Apart from that, it feels like its own thing entirely. It feels very much like it's doing its own thing and it's going about it in the right way. So whether people kind of agree with what they've seen in the episodes or not, I think the fact that we're looking at this show very differently to how everyone was looking at The Acolyte, how very differently we looked at films such as like Star Wars Episode 9, which I personally think was a train wreck, and other shows like Andor, which I personally think is a masterpiece. We're not going to get either of those ends of the spectrum with this. What we're going to get is people who are not dissecting every single little detail, but instead are just along for the ride, along for the adventure. And that's a very, very refreshing way to look at it. I think the advertising and marketing and how they've gone about everything to do with that end is going to push it more in that direction. Maybe as the episodes go on and maybe as they start to link it more towards the Star Wars universe, you'll get some of those criticisms coming in. You'll get those people coming in, looking at it underneath a microscope. But right now, we're 2 episodes in, you can't do that. And that sets the tone for the show immediately. Like, in episode 1 and 2 of Andor and episode 1 and 2 of The Acolyte, people were immediately going, how does this link to this? The only big mystery of this is, where is Alatan? What is Alatin? Like, what is that planet? What is the treasure? What are they seeking after? How do they get home? It's not Star Wars kind of orientated. Who's the Jedi? Who's the Sith? Who's going to be battling who in the end? What's the big grand reveal? How does this link to the main canon? Blah, blah, blah. Instead, we just got like, hey, we got 4 kids on an adventure. They've just been joined by Jude Law, who we just going to go ahead and assume is an outlaw pirate who is also a Force user and a bit of a cheeky lad. That's what we've got so far. So there's not really anything that we can really kind of dig into that we can heavily criticize or heavily praise past what we've seen on screen, which is so good for Star Wars. It protects the actors, and I think it's going to get rid of a lot of the hating end of the fan base making their comments known.
It makes doing the videos funner. Not that we surround ourselves with bad people. We're very grateful for the people that jump on Star Wars videos, but we're not going to be deep diving every frame of today like we have in other episodes before, which is great.
But what's really I was going to say what's also refreshing is I know for a fact that I enjoyed the episode, you enjoyed the episode, Phil didn't enjoy the episode as much, and I'm sure we'll go into that in a bit as to why. But it's not going to be because of like nitpicky things. It's going to be.
Although I am looking forward to someone out there going, "Wait, there's chewing gum in Star Wars. How does this work?" I'm looking forward to that nitpicky detail from someone going, "No, this isn't how this works." It's not like me and my claim about the Mortis gods. It's like, no, this is chewing gum. How does this fit in?
Ghoul buses in Star Wars. But no, I'm enjoying it.
Phil, I was going to say, Phil, before we really get into it, anything more to add on that? I know we've basically done like a 25-minute intro, but it's kind of, this was a big thing for me in terms of doing this series. Like, we always do the Star Wars live action ones as weekly chats. And I did want to scale and degree, not to shove. I was like, this is going to be different to the others. And I'm looking forward to it being a bit different. It's winter, it's Christmas. It's not going to need to, we're not going to have the knives out. Where the fuck's this? Where's this? Where's Krennic? Where's the Sith? Where's the Stranger? Where's Plagueis? It's like pirates. I'm in.
I mean, if you really want to do the deep dive, there are a few connections already to the Star Wars universe in terms of, like, when it's saying criffing, which is a Star Wars equivalent of an F-bomb, which is I find quite funny. You have other little tiny bits and pieces here and there, but as you're both saying, there's no full on, here is your link, here is in your face, this is part of this universe because of this. There's no A plus B plus C.
We got that's Wizard.
Oh god, that's Wizard. Which
I
love.
was so happy, and they put Pod Racer Anakin at the start of the Disney Plus intro with the little metal things. Sorry to cut you off. I was like, I couldn't believe. I was like, we just got a That's Wizard reference in 2024.
I mean,
some grown man out there
in the High
crying.
Republic. A lot is Wizard, so I think we
Is
found
it?
actually, we've actually got the origin of Wizard, which is from a character called Ram Jamaran, who comes from a planet called Valo. And it kind of grows from there. So Wizard, we now have the kind of origin story for. But again, it's a cool little thing to see. And if you don't do that full deep dive, you're not gonna know it. It's just cool to see the little reference. But the big thing going into this for me was also this is a Star Wars show. It will have its Star Wars moments, but how is it different? How is it going to tell a fresh new story? And both of you have made really good points as to how it's a different story without it being overtly a different story. It's a fresh perspective. It leaves open the possibilities for even bigger links. We've got pirates. Where's my live action Hondo? Just that's all I'm gonna say. Like, give me my live action Hondo. But there's gonna be a whole bunch more to come, I'm sure. Especially when we talk about Aladdin later on. I've got a couple of bits and pieces I want to talk about for that. But for the beginning, just opening. So as you already said, I didn't enjoy it as much, but the keywords there is as much. I did like it. I have some things I like. It just didn't grab me, but we'll get into that as we go along. But for the, yes, we've done a 25-minute intro, but there's a reason for that. Is for once, instead of us sitting here going, right, we've hyped this up, we've been looking forward to it, here's all the trailers, we've done the preview discussions, all the rest of it. This is a fresh little, okay, we got something new. It is, and the key part you already brought up, George, was end of the year Christmas. Family show, Christmas. It all kind of blends into one. So I'm looking forward to seeing where it goes. But yeah, we'll crack into it now.
Yeah, I mean, okay, let's really. I mean, we've covered a big chunk of our schedule just with them, but yeah, let's talk the story really briefly. So I've just read the 80s Amblin film in Star Wars. I think I called it yesterday, "The Phantom Menace meets the Goonies." I quite like that. Again, I'm really connected with this Phantom Menace vibe. Again, if anyone's got kids in the comments, comment if they've watched it, if they're going to watch it. But I'm really curious. And again, it's not just because they said that's Wizard, but it really added to that moment. I guess it's because we haven't really had kids in Star Wars since 99, have we? 3-year-old George's hero was Anakin Skywalker. He was also in Jingle All the Way. You can watch our Christmas Cinema Savvy Mount Rushmore Christmas films. We got to talk about that very briefly. But going back to this, it's I suppose this thing. I don't want to go on Suburbia. Some people will, I'm sure, and there's some interesting stuff there. But the core of the story is, hey, these 4 kids, school kids, bored. They've got exams. They've got lessons. They're being told your life starts tomorrow. This is what you're going to have. They come across a starship, and in one person's quest to try and become a Jedi, we are on an adventure around the galaxy. Nice, simplest way to put it. Someone could put it simpler, I'm sure. But as you said, Tate, the story is what's our Latin and how do they get home? It's as simple as it needs to be. And I am all here for it. But you can't really talk about it without talking about the characters, because characters in Star Wars, as we spoke about, it's a very delicate subject. I think I spoke about it yesterday. Maybe it was a bit deep for a 9-minute video, but certainly in America, the treatment of child actors is very different here in the UK. It's something I'm very concerned by and have been since I read a lot more last year during the SAG strikes. For example, kids being made to work an unlimited day on set, not limited by hours. You've got the whole aspect of the parents who always take the money. It was really eye-opening seeing a lot of the SAG requests. They basically just wanted child actors to be looked after, and it was all rejected by the studios. Obviously, we've got the Jake Lloyd scenario, and we wish him well. There was photos of him out and about recently for the first time. He's looking healthy, which is great. And if the day ever comes where he does a public appearance, I'm sure that the fan base will be around him. And if the day comes where he never wants to do it, I'm sure people will respect that too. And I think there's an obligation for a studio to protect these actors. I feel they failed that with grown adults. And as you said, Phil, that's something we've been nervous about heading into this, that they don't have a good track record, and Lucasfilm really need to improve and back people on stuff such as this. And my concern heading in is still not in the target demographic for the show. I tend to struggle with child actors a lot in shows. I'm not criticizing them, they're children, but the writing of children's probably one of the trickiest types of writing to do. And I saw a great tweet by someone earlier, I've forgotten their app, but they basically said, well, think about how John Watts handled the Spider-Man trilogy. granted, Tom Holland is like our age, but it's probably the best writing of them being school students that the Spider-Man characters had on live action as a film. And I never thought about that. And they're actually saying that really it starts with John Watts is maybe his pitch's involvement, but certainly for me, I know we'll talk about maybe them individually. I know Neil's become the go-to. He's our thumbnail. He's got the best comb over in all the cinema. There's already baby Neils for people to get the merches going in the future. You've got Neil in the bath. Funko have probably wet themselves at how much they could have done today. But I really enjoyed the dynamic of the children because I thought, oh, they're going to be petulant, they're going to be annoying. I was like, no, man, they're just kids at school. Oh, the boys don't like the girls. Oh, we need to outwit each other. It reminds me of being back at school. And guess what? Now they're on an adventure, and one of them's just a kid who wants to have a not so boring life. The other is the daughter of a high up, clearly a bit corrupt because there was a little bit of something going on there about her daughter getting some high badges, and she just wants to be a renegade, be away from that. It set itself up to be a lot of fun, and I think it starts to end with that young cast. And I think as well, we go back to our childhoods, and yes, we've not really had it in Star Wars. Phil, you mentioned Hondo. I'm not gonna lie, we've all probably thought about Hondo at some point in the show, but when we were all kids, we fucking love pirates, Vikings. Horrible histories is in just that logic of like that really cool historic stuff that we'd never get to do. And it's like, yeah, like Star Wars and pirates really does go hand in hand, and it isn't something that's really been explored before. And yeah, it kind of, in the nicest compliment, certainly episode 2 felt like a PlayStation game in the best possible way. I was like, look at all these really cool things going on. Look at these crazy environments. Look at these crazy people, these different characters surrounding us. And I just thought it was really important to talk about the 4 leads, and that I'm enjoying it so far. And you know, I think I'm very critical of certain films like Terminator 2. I can't stand the lead actor. I can't stand this. Strange Things cast, I like them. I know everyone jokes they're a bit old now to be doing the final season, and obviously it's a concern with the Harry Potter show that you know you can't do a season every 2 years because then your kids will be in their like late 20s playing a 16-year-old. But what did you guys all think about them? Sorry for sort of grouping them up together, but I'm even more delicate talking about them because there's individual personas and personalities within them. Not yet on KB, and I feel like we'll get a big explanation for her, certainly with the headgear and everything on there. But if they don't work as a unit with chemistry, the show is not going to function. Like those great films of the 80s we spoke about, you have to collectively enjoy them all, or you're not going to enjoy it at all. And I thought it was a really great idea to start the show with them. Again, it's a TV show, right? Not a film. We can spend a bit of time with them bored in their day to day because you've got to build up to them getting on the adventure and getting off the ship. And I thought episode 1 was a great way to do that, ending with the ship going out rather than, you know, it dipping after 5-10 minutes like it would have to do if it was a film.
I agree. I just want to backtrack ever so slightly because, you know, you talked about Jake Lloyd. We've, of course, talked about kind of, you know, the way Star Wars actors, at least, and the fan base and how that works and stuff like that. I mean, completely different situation, but protecting child actors has come back into news within the last kind of 24 hours with Jack Field, who played the kids' version of Loki, and how he's been treated and stuff like that. And that just harkens back to kind of, you know, how with the actor strikes and how American young actors or actresses have been treated. It's not good. And I'm glad that this is being handled, hopefully, in a better way than that is, especially because that is another Disney property. And they're now going to have to protect him in some way, shape or form because, you know, he's homeless now. He's a kid. He's still under the age of 18. He's homeless because of, you know, his parents taking the money away from his acting, and just horrific situation. Hope it gets sorted out. But it was worth mentioning that in the same vein because we've seen that before. That's happening within 24 hours of this episode coming out. So it's very, very relevant to how child actors are being treated and how they need to be handled when it comes to big shows, big movies, and everything like that. Grouping the 4 characters together, I can already see that the dynamic together is very fun. Each of them have their own little quirks. Each of them have definitely different character traits that are going to shine. And I'm going to go ahead and say it. It isn't even like a big spoiler, even a big prediction. All of them are going to have individual moments to shine. All of them are going to have great moments where 2 of them pair up, and it's an unusual pairing. Like, it's not just going to be, you know, the two boys and the two girls going off together and doing their own thing. They're all going to work with each other at some stage, and they're going to become like one of those strong bond friendship groups throughout the entire show. And that's so nice to see, and that's the way they've set it up, and that's how they're going to go with it from the very, very off. I will say straight away, Neil is my favorite character. Neil is everyone's favorite character. Come on. Like, he is fantastic as a character straight away. But at the same time, I know for a fact that all of them are going to have amazing moments within the show. All of them are going to have somewhat iconic lines that are going to be called back to. And all of them have a little bit of mystery and intrigue behind them, at least how they're going to move forwards with the show, what character progression they're going to get, you know, how they're going to handle the situation and get back home. It's so well put together, and having those 4 leads, you know, decent actors as well, I want to add straight away. Not a poor acting performance going on there from the first 2 episodes. It's nice to see that they're already you're seeing those kind of tongue-in-cheek arguments. You're seeing those little bits of rift forming between them already, but they'll bond together in the end. You can see how it's going to plan out, and you can see it's going to be one of those great shows because of that.
Here's where I start to go a little bit like, okay, this is where it doesn't quite gel for me. Wim. First off, he has the most annoying name because the whole thing is doing it on a whim. It is
I hadn't even clocked that.
Yeah, it is so on the nose.
Sorry, I hadn't clocked it.
This is just awful, and I don't like it. Yes, everyone loves Neil. Neil is awesome. It's actually Fern, who I quite like. I like the way, especially when it comes to you talk about the dynamic between, you know, friends and being kids at school and the rest of it. I love the fact they both think they outsmart the other. When they're digging to this Jedi temple, which they find out to be the ship, it's okay, well, we will dig it out because we can. We're men, basically. We're boys. We can do this. And the girl's like, well, yeah, you have at it. We'll let you go in first if you dig it. Like, okay, cool. It's going first. They think they've won, but they haven't. We all had that at school, and you look back on it, and you have memories of going, God damn it, I was completely screwed over. I love that dynamic. Wim was the point I didn't really gel with, but on the very flip side, the one thing you talked, George, a bit about this was the parents. You talk about the mum who's obviously a little bit corrupt. She wants her daughter to do well. Neil's parents, very typical
family
American white picket fence family kind of vibe to it. And then you have Wim, whose dad is very work orientated, single parent. And I like the fact they've come at it from 3 different approaches of, we have one family who's very typical in one area, one very power forward mother, one father who he has the vibe of struggling to make ends meet, but he's really trying. He wants his son to do well. He wants to make sure that he's got a life and all the rest of it. Wim, especially when it comes down to the whole, aren't you a little too old for stories kind of thing. I love that little, it's when you talk about coming of age, that tells you it is without telling you it is. It's a really nice little hook. And I like that. But then, yeah, you get into it, and Neil, yes, everyone loves. Fern, I love how she takes command, especially when they're on the space station.
She's the captain already, just saying, you know?
Yeah.
Exactly. But she takes charge and makes that her own. And you talk about the child actors, and actually, funny enough, I wanted to bring back to it what you're both talking about in a negative light, but just to raise awareness, was the fact that we also had that with the young actress who played the young version of Jyn Erso. And the same thing when it came to Leia as well. Like, immediately after, here's a big convention, right? Get them there, get them something. We had a big discussion about this back in the day of, this doesn't feel entirely right. And I'm hoping, yes, they'll probably bring them out for Celebration next year. They probably, unfortunately, will be signings, but hopefully they limit it in terms of even more of you have one slot on one day. That kind of, got to look after them a little bit more. And unfortunately, the Star Wars fandom has a tendency, all the way back to like Kelly Marie Tran when we're talking about episode 8 and that kind of vibe. There could be a lot of negativity. Luckily, this show already seems to have a lot more positive vibe. In fact, in everyone I've spoken to, they've all really enjoyed it. I have enjoyed it to an extent. There's the little things, but Wim was that starting point for me. The whole, his name being on the nose, but again, here's also his vibe of, kind of the idiot without being the idiot. Didn't quite feel right, but that's a small nitpick in terms of the overall arc, because that first episode, we've all been at school. We've all had those experiences. The school bus, they brought up early with the chewing gum on the back of the driver. I absolutely loved that. I thought that was hilarious. And the other one was Neil in the classroom having the crush on the other girl, which was just hilarious. We've all had that in the past, where you have these moments of it's relatable without it being shoved down your throat. I really enjoyed that. And there's moments later on in the episodes where it kind of loses a little bit of that as they're trying to find their way into a galaxy. But even the whole don't press anything. Ooh, what does this button do? Press. It's got that spark of adventure to it. I can see those comparisons people are making between Goonies and Stranger Things and all the rest of it. But then there's also another nitpicky one, which Neil is himself, which I couldn't tell if his was prosthetic or animation, his actual head. It was fantastic.
It's a kid in an animatronic suit. It's incredible.
Yeah, it's incredible. But then again, he's the one who says, oh, look, aliens. Like, okay, you had a crush on a girl who's green covered in fur. You're an elephant man. Why are you bringing up the alien part? Like, that's kind of it. It's the innocence of kids. They just could have done that one a little bit better, I guess. But that's kind of my thoughts on the characters. But KB obviously is the one who, like, okay, where's the origin? Where's the okay? Everyone else's story. I love the Lobot style with the visor. It's got the added mystery, and when we talk about El Artin, so the actual planet as well, that's the mystery. But you got mysteries within mysteries. That's never a bad thing. It creates talking points for the audience, but it also kind of, you don't need to know everything right away. And I think they're keeping her story a mystery for a good reason. And we'll find out what that is later on.
I agree with you. And as well, with it being an 8-episode show, you wonder, can you do an 8-episode kids show? Of course you can. And even episode 2 getting a 27-minute runtime, was it? Flew by. Episode 1 getting the 45. And I know it's a criticism at times. You can pick and choose the run length criticisms. You know, a prestige drama has 8 1-hour episodes. Yes, great, we get it. But Mandalorian from day one was doing short episode, long episode, long episode, short episodes. And an episode's as long as the episode needs to be. On streaming, have the advantage of it being the episode being written for that reason. But it was just with them kids. I'm glad you brought up the Neil stuff, because when I found out it was a kid in the suit, I was shocked. I thought it might have been a kid motion capture. Then I was like, the motion capture is a bit too real. And then I saw a photo from the premiere last night. They even had someone in the Neil costume with all the cast, which was very cute. And again, I think he's going to become a sensation. He already has become a sensation. And shout out to #OtherNeil, friend of our channel, who's literally said there's never ever been on any media another Neil NEEL. So he was delighted. But yeah, it's really interesting chatting about, again, with the kids, and there's a lot more to come from them. As you said, Phil, Tate, I think everyone's going to get their moment. And we'll probably get backstories. We'll get really fun pairings. And I think the show lends itself, again, with the whole pirate youthful adventure story, that nails what it needs to be. And kind of where we go with this, before we get to Jude Law, I really want to talk about Smee, SM33, voiced by Nick Frost. Loved. I got a bit of PTSD to Aiden Romulus. I was like, oh no, there's the Captain Droid from earlier on. Nope, we're not getting a dead actor being de-aged. We're getting the voice of Nick Frost, beloved British actor. Simon Pegg's made it to Star Wars. Now it's Nick Frost's turn. I loved him. And you know, I'm really weird with Nick Frost. I love Nick Frost. But I've never massively cared for him in a lot of things outside Cornetto trilogy. That's really disrespectful to say, because I still really enjoy him as an actor. But I felt like SM33 wasn't what I expected a Nick Frost Star Wars droid to be. And I liked that it is, I mean, it's literally got a dodgy leg to have the whole peg leg. It's obviously a pirate with the terminology. You throw him out the airlock, you're the captain, you've killed my captain, I'm the captain now. I loved the idea of a droid loyal to the ship, not to the crew, which is what pirates are and were. And I think the Smee name's genius. I'm sorry. Like, okay, it's the easiest nod there is. Bringing in David Lowery, okay, no one wants to talk about Peter Pan and Wendy, but even him to an extent, then getting to do a droid version of pirates. I had a lot of fun with him, and I feel that although there's a core cast, and I will say that I was about to call it Smee the comic relief, I felt both of the episodes were very funny throughout. Like, adult funny, like not adult jokes, but I'm laughing not at my inner child.
Well,
but I
there's
actually
humor
thought this
there
was
for
genuinely
both.
funny.
There's humor there for both kids and adults. It's got the layered effect. And when I say adults, it's not a dirty joke that flies over someone's younger's head. It's just there's layers of jokes there for everybody without it being, again, overtly funny. They've had a really nice, subtle way of making everything laughable and fun and mysterious and still feel like Star Wars, which is
There
brilliant.
was one joke which was an adult only joke which probably flew over every kid's heads, which was them looking over at clearly the strip bar and them going, "We won't ask you there."
Yes.
But apart from that, Mummy, Daddy, what are they doing there? It's okay, son. It's fine.
And she was the one helping them.
Yeah, exactly. But no, I agree. Like Smee as a character, it's great as SM33. I mean, we'll call him Smee anyway.
Yeah.
It is genuinely just the full on. We'll do every single pirate stereotype and turn them into a droid. The kind of crooked leg, the one eye missing, the Yahara mateys kind of talk and stuff like that. The accent going as well. Loyal to the ship, everything kind of rolled into one, which is fine. You need that kind of character there because it's probably going to lean them more towards acting like pirates, which I'm sure that when we talk about, Jude Law's character, then that'll come in even further as they become space pirates over time.
Bill, anything else, mate?
Yeah. Well, the only other thing I'd say on that one is I do like the whole with SM33. I'd love his whole kind of shtick of, okay, you killed the captain, you're now the captain, and the rest of it. You talk about the eye missing. I love the little rat thing that's in his eye. That has a very Pirates of the Caribbean feeling. Where it's like, right, what we need to do to get out of this cell is we need the key. Well, how do we get the key? Rat thing, right? Go out there, go get the key, bring it back to us. It's very Pirates. It's a typical thing, but I absolutely love it. The fact it's included of just this whole, right, we need to get out of here, hatch a plan. How do we do that? Oh no, the craziest thing. Let's get the rat to go get the key. It works and it's brilliant and I love it. But SM33 is probably my favorite, kind of had some of my favorite moments, and the peg leg especially. I laughed properly when I saw that. I was like, okay, if you're going to do pirates, you can't not have a peg leg in there somewhere. And they found a way of making it work. And that's where it kind of, as I said, these are the bits that I really enjoyed. My whole shtick of I didn't enjoy it as much was mainly that first episode. It was so... Yeah. You talk about the second episode flying, it did. The first episode for me dragged so much I was almost not going to watch the second one. Like, this is just dull.
I do have one comment on this, and this is my only kind of major stick out criticism I can give for it so far. First episode, of course, credits are there as well, so we'll take credits off. The first episode was it 48 minutes long with credits? That's a long amount of time to keep a kid occupied. I thought these episodes were going to be short and sharp, 20 to 30 minutes long every single time. And I know that with the Star Wars shows, they tend to have quite a big first episode. Then the episodes get shorter as they go, and then the finale is a bit longer towards the end. But I'm surprised they didn't change how they structured the episodes and the runtime of the episodes based around the fact that this is a kid's show. Keeping a kid sitting down and watching something, even if they are invested in it, for 48 minutes and saying it's a TV show is a long amount of time. If it's a film, you can stick them down and they can either watch it or they can be distracted, or you sit them down in the cinema and they'll watch it. Because it's a TV show, I think 48 minutes is a long amount of time for an episode one, and I think it should have been a lot shorter. And I completely agree with you, Phil. The first episode dragged a lot longer than the second episode. Second episode, I was fully into the adventure at that point, and it flew by. It was breakneck pace. It like really went through. First episode, it felt a bit long, and that's coming from a person who sits through long films. So,
I think that's the key, right, of them dropping the first two together. Because I'm assuming episode 3. I mean, there were very limited screeners sent out. I know someone that saw it. I've not asked for his opinion, but David Lowery's directing episode 3, which makes me think that, okay, you got the same director on episodes 2 and 3. It's probably like a double, if that makes sense. Like now we're going to do the breakout from the oh god, I forgot where they are. I was about to say the bloody spaceport. Yeah, I was thinking the bloody port from Pirates of the Caribbean then. It's an interesting thing. I'm right. I'd imagine these days kids probably just pause Disney Plus. I guess TV is different to when we were all a bit younger, but no, I'm with you on that. The first one did take its time. I guess they really had to nail in the whole, we're stuck at school, we've discovered the ship. And I loved all the ship stuff in the first one. Even, I don't know if you even call it twist, but knowing the ship was actually upside down the entire time, I thought that was really cool when that came to light. Things were swapping over and whatnot. But I'm with you both on that. The second one I adored. I think people have a lot more fun there, and I think it's the right thing to do to get you to come in for 3 onwards. Now, obviously, we don't know what's going to happen in episode 3. I believe episode 3 is 45 minutes. I know Disney's credits are 5 minutes. They're quite long on the Disney Plus stuff. But yeah, episode 3, and I guess we'll find out soon what every episode runtime is going to be. I guess it's going to be episode dependent. But really quickly, let's talk. I say Jude Law. We got him. Well, I guess the opening and closing scene of the first 2 episodes. I'll sort of pair him up with Brutus, the villain, because we're obviously getting a pirate story. And Phil, quote me on this. At Celebration last year, they told everyone Jude Law was a Jedi. I swear it. They said he was the word Jedi. They very, I don't want to say importantly, they made a clear point of saying, "Haha, we've never said he's a Jedi. He's a Force user." Like, no, like you told a room of thousands of people he's a Jedi. Loved little moment at the end. But I'm there for the intrigue that we know he's going to be with the kids. We know the adventure is going to be with them together. We now know that he was a pirate after some treasure. So can he be trusted? Can he not? But listen, I love Jude Law. He's one of them actors that as a kid I didn't care for him. As I got older, I was like, I really fucking like Jude Law. We mentioned it's Wizard earlier. The man got wrongly done on Fantastic Beasts. He deserves so much better. And Jude Law in Star Wars, it works. Jude Law basically playing dad to a group of 4 kids on adventure. Sure, a lot of actors could do that, but something about Jude Law jumps out to me that actually he's probably better equipped for it than a lot of other people. Like, he just strikes me as a genuinely good person that would be great for those kids on set as a mentor figure. And I hope he gets some really fun stuff with him. If he, again, I know he was in that awful Captain Hook film, but I really like him as an actor, and I want to know the dynamic, because even Brutus is the villain. Yeah, he's a pirate, but I even like the ideology that, you've led us on another fucking mission where we've got nothing to show for it, and now we're going to do a mutiny on you. I kind of like that. I want to know what's happened, and we didn't speak about the opening scene, but okay, it was very episode 4. I even loved the whole pirates taking over the ship type aesthetic, chucking people out of the airlock, like that would be walking the plank. A lot of fun there, and I'd imagine they've had a lot of fun in making the show, bringing the pirate side of things into space. Don't have too much to say on Jude Law or Brutus, but it leaves you wanting more, right? As we finish 2 episodes.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see that next episode's runtime and see where they go with it.
It's 40.
It's
45, 40 without credits.
Because I feel like we're going to get a lot more about Jude Law's character. I don't think we're going to get more about Brutus, but I definitely feel like we're going to get a lot more learning about him, because we've literally been introduced to him in 2 different ways. We've been introduced to him like as the pirate, and we've been introduced to him as the Force user. So the next episodes, I feel like he's going to assume captaincy of the ship, and suddenly the adventure they're going to go on, he's going to find out a bit more about where they're from, where they're trying to get to. He's going to make the link in his head. I mean, the comparisons to Treasure Island are just, they're there. They're right there. Like, he is basically just Long John Silver at this point. And, that is going to be the whole thing of, he will probably eventually betray them. Like, because he'll want the treasure. But it's the adventure they're going to go on. And I'm intrigued to see what they do with the character. Because as soon as, I know I wasn't there for Celebration. You guys said that they said Jedi. After seeing him episode 1 and the character he is, I'm immediately thinking, he's the villain. He's going to be the villain later on in the series. He is 100% the villain. That's him right there. He will betray them, but he's going to gain their trust first. And I don't know what they're going to do with Brutus, but maybe Brutus ends up actually being a nice guy who, is a pirate, but hey, who knows?
I love the design. It reminds of like the Mummy films. Like he just looks like a very like Egyptian monster carving on a wall.
He looks like a werewolf. That's what he looks.
He looks awful. That's the thing for me. He looks awful compared to every other costume and every other thing in the entire show. So far, oh my god, it looks so bad compared to Neil. That costume just took me out of it. I'm like, it's just this
I
just
get
looks
it.
like a bad fursuit. It's another one of the reasons I'm like, didn't quite grab me. But there was more that first episode is kind of what didn't really pull me in. The second episode brought it back. If the third episode continues on this vein, yeah, I'm sure I'll be completely along for the ride. I'm like, right, okay, yeah, let's go for it. Let's see how this does. Brutus, though, as a character, different. Brutus, I'm interested in to see where he goes, because obviously we didn't talk about the opening too much. That very opening scene in the first episode of the raid, the pirates taking over the ship, and Brutus being, the whole head of the mutiny. That whole bit there, so you know where he's come from and why. And I'm more interested to see. I do agree, Tate, he might be that flip flop. He might be the good guy in the end kind of thing. We'll see where that goes. And I have a lot of theories and a lot of comparisons in terms of when we come on to our final thoughts and everything else of what we could see, where it's going, and where they have drawn comparisons to more of the Star Wars universe. Jude Law, on the other hand, is one of 3 actors I've wanted to see in Star Wars for years. The other 2 being Gary Oldman and Ralph Fiennes. Those 2 I would love to see in Star Wars as well, just because they are phenomenal actors and they have so much range. Jude Law, for me, is in that conversation as well. 3 of my favorite actors that have the incredible ability to not only portray things with their voice, but with their movements, their facial parts. Everything has a way and meaning. Everything they do is meaningful. It's got an impact somewhere. And his whole the way he's introduced, the whole shuffling forward, they make a point of focusing on the chains. So the kids, you get that point of view of them going, can we trust a prisoner as well? Like, we're in here because we did something stupid, but we're kids. If he's in here and he's a grown-up, doesn't really go trustworthiness. So that's why I love that that one little shot kind of gives you that feeling. But the whole just put his finger out like, shh, I got this, and brings the keys over. And that's where it cuts. We've got the story, we've got the hook for the next part of it. So for me, Brutus character, love him. Design, god awful. Jude Law, okay, I'm well invested to see where he goes and what happens. Because I agree, he could be the whole, oh, you think I was helping you along? Nah, I just want the treasure. And I like it.
I'll bet now he'll be the Jack Sparrow. He'll turn on them and then he'll turn back.
Maybe. Here's the thing. I've always wanted to see Jude Law in Star Wars, but I've always seen him as like an Imperial officer, like a Krennic type, like, just really softly spoken, but really, really evil kind of type. It'd be interesting to see him in this role because we've not, apart from Hondo, we've not really had pirates in Star Wars before. We've not really had this style of adventure in Star Wars before. So it'd be interesting to see how he fits into the universe, if that makes sense, and how he makes the character his own.
Yeah, and also a massive yes about Ralph Fiennes. He'd need to be like a Grand Moff Tarkin type. Like, he'd need to command the entire...
Yeah.
Even at Comic-Con this week, in the photo shoots, he had his hands behind his back the entire time. I was like, it's literally an Imperial officer. And he's just naturally intimidating. Get him in Star Wars. I bet he's been asked before.
Probably has.
And Gary Oldman, if they want to find him a role, get him in. Don't care where. Okay, let's talk about Aladdin. I know we've got not too much more to say, but the biggest surprise that episode 2, where you're from Aladdin, they laughed. I thought, oh, they're laughing because they're far away. Oh, no. Aladdin is the planet of hidden treasure. It's a myth. It doesn't exist. Suddenly, I was more intrigued about where this story is going to go. And I've been able to think about it. I know I'm lucky I got to see it on Sunday. So I've had 2-3 days of thought compared to you guys who obviously saw it today. There's little tidbits when they're like, no one can get out of our planet, but they're obviously in a very old ship that was able to get out from that planet. No ship could be here, but the ship was buried in the ground, which implies it's been there long before the people were. I am very curious about the planet. Is it a treasure planet? The money currency was a massive moment. I can't remember if they called it old credits or something, but
was the Republic credits.
Yeah,
Republic credits. Okay, so here's my tidbit with it. There's been no mention, and this is great. As going back to what we spoke about earlier, there's been no mention of any Star Wars following the death of the Emperor. There's been no mention of any politics really in terms of the galaxy. And Alex from Star Wars Explained has done exactly what I knew he would do, and thankfully he's done it today. You know when he's flicking through the iPad and he's reading all the Star Wars adventures? So that's now been fully translated on Star Wars Explained for anyone that's curious. Head over to his Twitter feed. It is all High Republic Jedi stories.
Okay,
now,
I'm going to have to go read this.
Now, you can read it, Phil. I don't believe that High Republic know names, but you will be able to tell me yes or no to that. I read somewhere, not like leaks, nothing like that. They're in a High Republic ship. Makes sense, buried underground. I feel like that was common knowledge before. So here's something I think. I think Alatin, I don't want to call it an incest planet, but that's in my head now. I think it's a myth in the sense that no one knows of its existence for centuries. And they've like kept, like the Star Trek, is it Star Trek 1 or 2 of the reboots when they go to like a primitive planet that doesn't have tech?
That's Beyond, isn't it? Is it Beyond?
Beyond? Where they're like, oh, this could have been great. I'm thinking of like that, but also Wakanda, where Wakanda's like, haha, this nothing desert poor place is actually rich and got all the tech in the world. I think there's a mystery to Alatin, and for whatever reason, I don't know what that could be. A self-sustained planet, a planet not involved with the Emperor, with the Jedi, with anything. Irrespectively, I'm excited for the mystery. I definitely feel the series ends with all the pirates getting to Alatin. Just a random bit of speculation from me, but I didn't think I'd be theorizing about planets in this. I thought it was a lot of fun, and it's added an extra dimension of to now not just they need to get home, but now it's they need to get home. But what is home in the grand scheme of the galaxy?
So I'm staring down at the poster right now, which a lot of people may try and do at the same time as me. And all I'm seeing on the poster is a giant X. For X marks the spot.
Skeleton crossbones. Oh,
it is a skeleton crossbones, but I'm thinking more of X marks the spot. I'm going to go ahead and say that it may have something to do with the old credits, may have something to do with that, but I get the feeling it's going to be something buried, some kind of myth, some kind of thing. But I'm going to go ahead and say that at the final episode, at the very, very end, it doesn't exist. And it's just a myth. It's just a tall tale that's told between the pirates, and they've been bamboozled by it. And the planet itself isn't anything special, but kind of they've almost got wrapped up in the myth themselves, and they want to keep it a secret. That's what I'm going with. I'm going with the mystery is there's no mystery at all. Which they've done before in Star Wars, and they've done it. It was reasonably well handled in Last Jedi. I liked it because I thought immediately that was kind of the answer anyway, and then they went and did Episode 9, and the mystery got unraveled. But I maybe there is something really special hidden there. Maybe it's a Jedi temple. I can't read too hard into the Star Wars lore because I'm not that heavy into it. But as a casual fan, I believe it could be something Star Warsy, some Jedi temple, like one of the first ones or something like that, possibly. Maybe something to do with a secret society. It seems like a pretty civilized planet. They've got suburbs, they've got a government, they've got high-ranking places and stuff like that. Maybe there's a massive conspiracy to what they're hiding, and maybe that gets unraveled throughout the episodes as well. Who knows? But one thing I will say is I think it will be ending up being an X marks the spot kind of thing, and it will be a hunt for treasure. Whether there is treasure or not is what I'm thinking will be the mystery.
Okay, so the X marks the spot is kind of funny. I'm going to do a bit of a deep dive here, but it'll help, I hope, explain a few things. In Phase 2 of the High Republic, there is a literal book called The Quest of Planet X. Now, Planet X is a planet where the levelers come from, the Nameless. These are these creatures that feed off of the Force. They feed off the Jedi, they turn into husks. It's a whole thing you get into with the High Republic era of one pirate, Marquion Rowe, who goes around killing Jedi because, well, they believe they're abusing the Force. That was the original intention of the Path of the Open Hand, which was the very beginning. Now the High Republic, for this point, Phase 2, which is the beginning of it all, because Star Wars, is set about 500 years before the events of the prequels. So it's quite a far way back. 400 years, I think, is the earliest we go back, but I might be mistaken on that. Now, the whole point of those early bits was the hyperspace prospectors. Hyperspace prospectors went out looking for hyperspace lanes. You had two families. You had the Graphs and you had the Santekers. Obviously, we have Lawrence Santeker. This is kind of his family history. And their whole thing was to discover hyperspace routes that were stable, that he then traveled the galaxy. The Outer Rim, obviously, at that point was wildly unmapped. So they were going along finding these planets, finding these full hyperspace lanes they could travel between the two. The quest for Planet X, the actual planet itself, Planet X, now it's not the same planet because they talk about a barrier. I'm going to get onto that in a second. But on Planet X, basically, the weather on the outside is so volatile that you can't get through it. If you do, you're probably going to crash. But the planet below, apart from these levelers, is one of the most beautiful, most abundant planets in the entire galaxy. It has rainbow for skies. The whole thing is just this wonderful treasure planet, which has a whole lot of mysterious parts on it, including these levelers. Now, I'm not saying that this is the same planet by any stretch of the imagination. However, when it comes to El Aten, they talk about the barrier. Now, this is something that's been put into place. Why has it been put into place? Why are they saying there's a barrier there? You saw from the ground, there's a shot where they look at the sky. The stars are red. They're not the traditional white. Now, not every star has to be the same color, but when you look at the sky, when they get out into space itself, they're white. They are your traditional galaxy. So bringing it back to the whole, if it's a High Republic ship, it's probably an old prospector ship, and it's probably one of these, going out to discover these planets. So it could well be a planet that was discovered. They wanted to keep it hidden, so they made up stories about the barrier and everything else. So there's a whole deep dive you can go into on that aspect. But the theory for me, then obviously, it's going to be something along those lines. But sorry to bore you all, but that's the proper deep dive I was able to kind of go into just based off those few little pieces. And if those are High Republic stories, be they true in terms of what I know from the lore itself, or be they new stories, if they have been left alone since then, that's their fairy tales. That's their, the Arthurian knights that we have, the Knights of the Round Table, all that kind of stuff. So it's quite possible that their whole planet was kind of discovered, settled. People knew it was there. They rubbed it off a map. And it could just be they're rich, and that's the whole point.
And that's where it's kind of going, is that, if you were reading a history textbook straight after episode 6, your immediate history is Jedi, it's Luke Skywalker. They wouldn't know that's too new. But then it would be the Jedi of 30, 40, 50 years ago, wouldn't it? And I think it's interesting that translation's come to High Republic. Even going back to the behind the scenes of when John Watts was announced, before he was announced, it was speculated that it'd be a show set in the High Republic. And it's not. It's set, obviously. I mean, we know it's set sort of simultaneously as Mando because we got the pirate from Mando season 3, I think he was in, or season 2, who popped up in it. Which was rumored a very long time ago that he would be going off to do another Star Wars show. Thankfully, not as the main villain, just as a supporting role. So it is an interesting one, and it leaves us in a not like, what's the term I always use that? Well, I can't tell you use it. I borrowed it off someone else. Sensitive speculation, and it's that idea of, listen, I love getting attached to my theories, but I won't let my own theory. I don't know the right way to say it. Be the arrogance between not liking a show because my envision for the show didn't come real. It can happen. You can have expectations, but people that get warped in their own fan edits and nonsense like that are the ones that always sort of catch me off guard. Where it's like, no, you didn't work on that show. Your interpretation of it can't be, this wasn't the same show in my head as it is on screen. That's not valid. But I'm excited to see what comes from it, and it's great we get to even have this. I didn't think we'd be getting this on a spoiler discussion for Star Wars, especially Skeleton Crew. So it's a lot of fun. It leaves me excited for next week. Very quickly, before we round out, I'd love to know your favourite moment from the first episodes and the sort of overall thoughts. My favourite moment it's just probably like any scene with Neil. I'm not gonna lie. I'll be honest. I love the Smee revelation because it suddenly felt like it was going to be a horror thing for like 2 minutes, and I was like, haha, David Lowery's directing Star Wars. And then it was very much the opposite and a very welcome Nick Frost. But overall, I'm really enjoying this. I didn't think maybe I'm even more excited because I didn't have expectations going in. I was just cautiously optimistic. And here I am, it's had an absolute blast, and I get to talk about it. And now I know, great. There's another 6 weeks of Star Wars TV coming. and then we're going to get Andor in April. So I am excited. But yeah, I'm already looking forward to episode 3 next week.
My favorite moment was actually the end of episode 1, where the kids go into hyperspace. And normally in Star Wars, everyone's like, wow, hyperspace. Instead, they're screaming for their lives. And I think that's fantastic. That sets the tone immediately. We're all out of our depth. Something that we've seen before in Star Wars, which is usually magical, is almost turned onto its head, and they're being shot off away on an adventure that they never asked to be on. I love that. I really like that as the episode ending. That kind of stuck out to me from the first 2 episodes.
I said it earlier. I'll say it again. It's the chewing gum on the back. It just cracked me up so much. It's such an inane thing, but it's just, you want to make a science fantasy setting seem realistic. Chewing gum on the back. Done. That's just, yeah, there we go. I'm completely, my suspension of reality is done. Here we go. I'm here for it.
Excellent. Well, listen, it's been a lot of fun talking with you both. I guess it feels weird not even like, haha, what's going to happen next week? It's been a really nice discussion, and I'm just saying that it has. It's nice to be talking about Star Wars again. It's nice to be talking something positive as well. We've all been, and I haven't enjoyed it as much, Phil, but it feels like one of them shows where it's been like, hey, we've had lots to talk about, and maybe we didn't think we would, and that's kind of enhanced it. So I do want to hear from people at home. So please do let us know with your thoughts on Skeleton Crew. We will be live. So I don't want to talk about criticism, but them randomly releasing it one day earlier was very, very peculiar. I don't know why. Thanksgiving was last week. I've understood dropping it like 3 days before, but one day before, I don't know if I'm really honest. So let us know your thoughts on Skeleton Crew. We'll be live next Wednesday. Now, we haven't locked in times. We've mentioned it's Christmas. We all have busy lives. This time of year, we're doing stuff. We're seeing people. There are plans. We will be live each Wednesday, but we might not be at the same time every Wednesday. So that genuinely is a thing to go get our socials. Subscribe to the channel if you've enjoyed this video. When the stream goes up, it says what the scheduled time is. So if you want to watch, you can plan around it. If you don't, it'll be there by the time you get to the next day. Of course, watch the episode first. So when there is announcements on times and streams, we will share them on here. Linktree.com/CinemaSavvy. That gets you through to all of our social medias: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd, and Blue Sky. What else is coming up? I mentioned we had our Christmas Mount Rushmore. That's now up on the channel. We have the Christmas series starting from this Friday. So Home Alone video is going to go up. It's not a deep review. It's not a spoiler review. It's not even a review as such. It's a chat about the film and maybe our memories of it, what it means to us, maybe watching a film for the first time. So we're heading into a nice quiet patch of the year. We've basically got Skeleton Crew on Wednesdays. We got Christmas stuff on Tuesdays and Fridays. And there's a couple of new releases this month. There's Sonic 3, Lord of the Rings, Wolf of the Home, the premieres as we speak. It looks absolutely dreadful. I'm sorry. It looks abysmal. We've also got Mufasa. Sonic 3 is going to win this month, isn't it? And obviously, we've had a lot of films out recently. So, again, there's a lot of stuff on our channel. We're rounding out 2024, and there'll be more things for next year too. We've mentioned Andor a lot. That's like the headliner for me. So that is going to do it for today. Thank you both for jumping on. It's been lovely chatting with you, and to everyone watching at home, we'll see you on the next one. Take care.
See you.